What is happening, brother?
Hey,
We're so pumped that we're able to do this. We're squeezing it in after this HPLT event. I think all three of us are ready to roll here.
Oh,
Lots of
yeah.
energy, so let's
Yeah.
hit it.
I'm excited.
5 ketone IQ shots, a lot of Zins, a lot of nicotine, but a lot of passion too.
We're here. We're
Yeah.
doing this.
Some beef.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we trying to think how we probably got connected through either Eric Hinman or Josh at Blokes, but we got to meet you at our Nashville conference. You absolutely
Yeah.
crushed it. It was so good to meet you in person too. We had been seeing the ice barrel pop up a bunch on our social media feed and never got to try it prior to June. And then since we've been using it a bunch just because our buddies here at Squatch, there are a few of them around here, and we've been just so impressed with the product, but we're even more impressed with the story. So today we had our HPLT panel. You spoke on it. You gave a little bit of context in your story, which seems like an absolutely wild ride. So I think we would love to get into, where you were 5+ years ago. How did Ice Barrel get started? I think that would be an amazing place to kick things off.
Yeah, absolutely. And just ask me any questions along the journey. It's so hard to compact everything into a short amount of time.
Right.
There was so much that went on. And even there, I have this whole story about where I was so tempted to set the whole house on fire and the barrels and just try and figure out how to collect insurance money.
Yeah. Because they were wooden at the time,
They
right?
were
So you
wooden,
could
yeah.
absolutely light those things up.
100%.
Yeah.
And it seemed honestly, it seemed like a good idea at the time, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there were so many highs and lows, but so much determination. I was just sharing with somebody, I don't know why. I think it's stressful for my team because I like to live on that razor's edge.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel so alive, but it's a little much for a lot of people. So
Definitely.
You gotta
Yeah.
feel like you're in the casino sometimes.
Oh, 100%.
Casino of life.
yeah, 100%.
Roll the dice.
It's a real thing. But I don't know where to start in this the story, but I go back not because it defines who I am, but my childhood shaped so much of how I ended up here. I absolutely love my parents. They did the best job that they could have. But I don't think they were super aware of the lifestyle that they were raising us in. But it was interesting. In 1999, my dad was in a really bad car accident and became 60% brain dead. So our family, since that point, became very unstable economically. And we just plummeted to the bottom. And so I started working when I was 9 years old. And I've had some form of a job since I was 9 years old. So yeah, it was just wild. So growing up, very entrepreneurial, but very survivalistic. And that's what I think pushed me into entrepreneurship
Mhm.
because you had to eat what you kill,
Yeah.
Right.
So all throughout high school, I was always working, very hyper vigilant in life just because I was what's going to get me next, right?
Yeah.
And so it was interesting because that didn't age well. And it was one of those things where if you don't deal with it, it starts to haunt you.
Definitely.
Give me a second.
Yeah. The six millis are powerful.
I can't even get it out of my mouth.
Can you imagine me with the 43 million?
No, that's
I was
crazy.
seeing stars.
That's
Yeah.
that is unbelievable.
I was like, I can't do a puke
Did you
potty.
do it?
Oh, I did it.
You
Yeah.
did it.
Oh, I did it.
Oh my gosh.
I was it wasn't as strong as I was expecting. I
Yeah.
think I don't know if the milligram dosage is wrong or something
Yeah.
like that, but
4.3. It's
yeah.
European.
Yeah.
Every couple of weeks for whatever reason, I get an insane burst of energy. And my wife knows I'm working till 3 a.m.
Yeah.
From my home office. And I put a little bit of nicotine just to help my focus, synthetic nicotine. And for some reason it seemed like a good idea to put Britney Spears on. And I jammed for 6 hours straight. Britney Spears, a little bit of nicotine. But I got so much work done.
That's incredible.
Sometimes when you have that energy and you can just crank, you just need to let it ride the wave.
You got to ride the wave.
Yeah.
I've got this
Yeah.
40 HZ binaural beats productivity playlist that
Oh
some
my goodness.
autistic
That's the
dude on
best.
Twitter recommended, and
Yeah.
I've been cranking work with a little Zinnian and the
Dude.
binaural beats. It's good stuff.
The
That's
right
amazing.
music is key.
100%. I don't know if
So
Britney
that might-
Spears, by the way, is the
Yeah.
right music. But
Is that the secret to writing banger Twitter threads? Is
Yeah.
Britney Spears
Yes.
and selling ice barrels?
she made a post actually about Ice Barrel.
Really?
Did
which
she
was
really?
Insane, yeah.
Well, shout out
was
Britney
amazing.
Spears.
Yeah.
Whether it's Britney Spears, Michael Chandler, all these people, when we tell the origin story, it's going to give the listener so much more context
Yeah.
and appreciation for where you started. I was just curious, you mentioned that with your dad's accident that you really grew up not well off financially. Were you someone that when you were going through high school and college, you were like, I just want to get the best paying job possible to kind of offset this? Or were you always just like razor's edge? We'll just figure it out.
Yeah, so it was interesting because my mindset was like at that time in life, not anymore, but like I needed to get the money to get out of this life. I didn't care what I was going to do as long as I was like getting the money.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like super scrappy and did a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And so throughout high school, super focused, did not date. Met my current wife. She's the only woman I've ever dated, ever been with. But like I locked
Wow.
in at like 18, and she always says how I dated her like super aggressively. I was super intentional. I was extremely, I can't say the word chivalrous. So I like asked her dad. I did everything by the book to lock it in because I was like, I got to marry her like as soon as possible.
Wow.
That's what I did. And by like probably 18, 19, I was in a really decent place financially because the way that I found I wanted to get the money was like high commission sales, and I could get out there and I could beat the pavement. So that's what I did. So, met her, again, I moved fast, bought a house, made my intentions very clear.
Wow.
We got married when we were both 20, and we just like started off our life like really fast. But like, and I'm so thankful that I had her, and still do, but my anxiety, which I called stress at the time, but I was so anxious and a little bit depressed. So that like haunted me. And no matter like how well I did, because I was selling like art and sculptures and jewelry and home remodels, like no matter how well I was doing, it just felt like I didn't have anything. And it was like it could all be gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I was like mega risky too. And just started like making fast decisions, trying to like compound money at the time. And then I got into corporate aviation sales. And it was interesting. Like I was like good at it to a degree, but at the same time, like that industry is so tough. It's really tough. It's
That's
tough.
private jet sales.
Private jet sales. Yeah.
Wow.
Tough to build a reputation. And you have to have like really thick skin because like people are yelling at you, screaming at you when these deals go sideways, and more deals go sideways than like come together, especially even at closing. That's the most like stressful point because they'll back out last minute because of egos. Like they want to know who's paying for like, they're buying like a $10 million jet and they want to know who's paying the $10,000 worth of fuel on the jet. And that's what blows the deals up. Weird things like that. So I moved my family up to Castle Rock, Colorado. We were in Colorado Springs originally. And I was working at a Centennial Airport, and the stress and the pressure of it all, like I got to a really dark place. And I even started like dropping weight, and I would get like sick on and off. And like when you're stressed and have anxiety, your cortisol levels are so high. So your immune system is naturally super low. And I found myself at like this, like, I don't know, early 20 life crisis. And just like rock bottom. And I was like talking to my wife. We've always been like really big on open communication. And I was feeling like I had a decent life insurance policy. I'm better gone. And like, I can't like take this stress, this pressure. Just because in the moment I could afford the lifestyle that we were living in Castle Rock. It was Douglas County. So it's like the wealthiest county in Colorado. Like our burn rate was like $12,000 to $15,000 a month.
Wow.
And that's living like on a budget there. So it was like the worst time to like even think about doing anything different. But I went to this gym. This guy named Joby told me how terrible I looked and how I should just go take a cold shower. He was like,
said you look like shit.
Yeah,
right?
he said I look like shit. And I was offended, but at the same time, there was this level of like desperation in me that had pushed me to like trying to figure out diet, or nutrition, I would say, meditation. I was like very like disciplined. So I would like sit and meditate for up to 2 hours in our unfinished basement on a concrete like floor, just sit there. And I'm like, this is good for me. This is good for me. And I would just do anything that would help. And the meditation was great in the moment, but then you have to face life again, you know? And it was like that 2 hours of like peace and serenity. And then the rest of the day was like awful. So, I took that first cold shower and it was incredible. I came out and I liken it, you know, when you get like a head cold or you're sick for like, let's say a week, and then you start feeling better and you're like, oh, I forgot what this feels like. Like this feels so good to feel good.
Right.
That's how I felt, but like on a huge scale coming out of the cold shower, I was like, I feel so present. And it felt different than meditation. It felt different than exercise. It felt different than trying to like dial in a diet. And I liked it so much, I kept going back like multiple times a day to the cold shower just to reset. And then I noticed that the effects started like following me. Like I just became so calm. Um, at the time I didn't know it, but I definitely had like an anger issue that expressed itself in like extreme impatience.
Mhm.
And I think that's where what I would call like being risky, but also a little bit rash in decision making. I was just so impatient. But that, like, started, like, tapering off, and the first thing my wife noticed, she was like, "You're so much more patient, with me, with, our daughter at the time, and just life in general, and myself." Like, started becoming more patient. I was like, "Man, this cold showers are working," and, so I just stuck with it.
Yeah.
Well, I then got to the point where, like, I did the whole, like, cold therapy journey, bathtub, stock tank, all that stuff, trying to figure out, like, how can I take this, like, almost a meditative practice, this, like, moment and keep it in its own place, not the family bathtub. Um, it was at that time I was like, I wanna keep the body upright, and I always talk about, right, your body in cold water goes in the fight or flight response, and it never made sense in my mind to lay down. That's a rested position, right?
Mhm.
When you go into, like, your deepest form of rest and recovery, you're lying on your back
Yeah.
Right.
or your side, right? You're lying down. And I was like, that's so counterintuitive to nature. I've never seen a creature other than the fainting goats, like do that. So
Definitely.
why am I doing that? Especially we're creatures with higher consciousness. Like, why are we lying down in a rested position? It's not relaxing. So cold therapy, lying down is not relaxing, right?
Yeah.
But when you're upright, you can be in the most comfortable position that is responding to this fight or flight response. So that was like the premise of I want to be upright, and a barrel made sense because the bulge in the middle allows for you to have room for your legs, right? The traditional cylinders are straight walled. So when you see like the blue feed barrels, those are not actual barrels, those are cylinders, right? Where a barrel has the bulge in the middle. So I knew what I wanted, I knew what would make sense, and I just started like kind of designing this product. And the traditional whiskey barrel is 55 gallons. If you are a small person, you could definitely utilize those traditional whiskey barrels, but I had to create something that would fit most body types. So I needed something that was going to hold a minimum of 80 gallons of water, preferably something right at like 95 to 100. That's like the sweet spot. So I had this whole idea, this whole concept built out, and I ended up taking this idea and talking to a couple different barrel manufacturers of what are called punch-in barrels, and they're made for upright fermentation specifically. So I had this idea. I was like, this is what I want. And at the same time, I felt like I was like dying in the aviation world. Even though things were starting to come together, I was working a lot of deals with very large uh, jet card companies that you buy a jet card, then you get access to a fleet. And the certain types of deals that the brokerage focused on or leaseback deals where you take an owner. I'm like going to tell people all about aviation.
Yeah.
But you take an owner and you do a deal with the jet card management company, and then they'll lease the airplane and you get like a commission split, like in perpetuity every month that thing's on lease. So they're like very, very advantageous deals. And so I had these huge deals in the works. But literally like I was sitting in my cubicle office and I was just like wrestling with this idea. I actually started packing up my belongings while I was thinking about all of this.
So out.
Yeah, I'll never forget this day. And I'll bring it full circle. But my boss's name was Pat. He was one of the most incredible humans I've ever met. He's been an incredible mentor for me. And yeah, I went into his office and I was gonna tell him I'm quitting. I was texting my wife during this time. I'm like, this is the time I'm gonna quit.
Mhm.
And she's like, I trust you. And I'm like, thank God. I don't know if you should, but cool. And then I went back to my desk and then I built up the courage. I went back in there and I was like, this isn't working for me. And he was very gracious to me. I passed all my deals off, which was super scary. And I had worked like on this one deal I had worked over a year on. And yeah, I just grabbed my stuff and I went home. There was no need for a notice because it was all commission based. Like I just passed everything off. And I'm a very organized person. So like the handoff was like buttoned up, made it super easy. And, yeah, I literally drove home and I'm like, I'm gonna create the best cold therapy experience. So that's like where it started, in Castle Rock, Colorado. And so then I got like my first 2 barrels manufactured, got them made, brought them in, and I had to do all the work. So I was like staining them, sealing them, and you have to put a liner on the inside of wooden barrels. A lot of people don't know this, but when you're dealing with oak barrels and you put water in there, the barrel will leach a toxin that's not good for humans if ingested. And so, but if you put alcohol in them, it neutralizes that
Mhm.
toxin. So that's why you can drink alcohol out of wooden
Interesting.
barrels. Yeah. But you don't want to like drink water out of wooden barrels. Not a good strategy. Um, so I was using these epoxy liners on the inside that were for potable water. So you could literally drink out of, if you sealed up water in that barrel, you could drink out of it.
Mm.
They use them inside of refrigeration trucks. If you look at them, they have an epoxy coating on the entirety of the inside of refrigeration trucks to keep the food and water and all that clean. Uh, and then I like put up a website that I had built and I was the one taking like the pictures and trying to manage Instagram. I am not a marketer, content creator, so
Yeah.
it was like really rough in the beginning. But what's crazy is there was nothing out there from a D2C standpoint that was available. And this was like, again, very early days of cold therapy. But just by having the words ice bath and ice barrel on the internet, we ranked so high for SEO.
Wow.
That's because there was
Unreal.
nothing there.
Right.
Yeah.
So we started selling these, and like white oak is very expensive. They're also very heavy, so we very expensive to ship across country. So we were selling them for $2,500 with like very minimal imagery, very minimal description on the website. Like
Mm.
not a marketer at the time. But it was crazy. We like started selling these like really quickly. And I made sure I built in enough margin that like it would start sustaining the business, but I was definitely investing heavily into like the R&D space and everything just with our personal money. And we very, very quickly ran out of money. But I had these 10 barrels sold within a week, and I was like working my butt off to try and finish these and get these shipped
Mm.
out to customers. And this is where everything went like so sideways. So I'm in like, I don't know, we sold maybe 50 of them at the time. I get this next batch in, and the manufacturer had left the epoxy coating on the shipping dock.
Mm.
And it froze that night. And this stuff cannot freeze. Otherwise,
dang.
it will not cure. I didn't know this. So I coated all of the barrels, and it's about 4 hours per barrel, like very manual, like brushing it on very carefully. And we go to ship them out, and I put my hand on the inside just to like pat one on the way out, and my hand comes out with epoxy all over it. And I was like, this is awful. Like, this is really, really bad. So I called the manufacturer. They were like super concerned, which was so nice. They sent one of their reps from like 6 hours away, drove to my house, and he was like, I'm going to make a few calls, finding out this stuff got left out on the dock. It froze. So, and I'm like, what do I do? Like, I have to get these out to customers. And he was like, you have to go get a product called xylene, which is like paint thinner times 10. And you have to put like, I don't know, like 2 gallons per barrel in there, let it sit, and it will start eating away at the epoxy, and then you have to wipe it out.
Mhm.
And I literally, like, he left and got me this like huge, huge container of xylene. And my wife walks into the garage. I just break down. I'm like, we got to get these out. We got to get our next order in. And I'm like, this is going to take like weeks to take care of.
How many barrels did this happen to?
This 10. It happened to 10.
Wow.
And I was just it was awful. And I was like, listen, xylene, if we just lit a match in our garage, everybody would like die.
Yeah.
I'm like, we could just like burn everything and like get insurance money and flee, which I don't recommend. That's not honest. It's not good. But I was in a bad place. Like a really bad place.
Would you say this is the bottom of the barrel for you? No pun intended.
This was definitely the worst. There was another bottom of the barrel, which I'll get to.
Yeah.
But this was definitely the worst. But I don't know, like something inside of me, it's like I'm very dutiful, like
Right.
duty to fellow man, duty to my commitments. Like, so I just started doing it. It took me 3 weeks to get them all cleaned out and recoated. And and we shipped one out, and there was this little spot that apparently I missed, and the customers are getting them. They love them, like great feedback. Uh, and these things are beautiful. We actually have one of the originals sitting in our warehouse still today.
Really?
Yeah, and they're beautiful. You guys will have to come out and see
That
the
would be
whole
incredible.
facility at some point. Uh, but this customer calls me from Arizona, and she's like, "I have this sticky spot in my barrel," and I was like, "I'll be down in a couple hours." And I just like took the whole like process to clean out a barrel and everything. I just got in the car and I just drove all the way down to Arizona. It was like 9 hours, extremely broke at this point, was maxing out a credit card to get down there. Got to her house, did this whole process in roughly 8 hours at her house, cleaning it out, recoating it, making sure it cured by that, because it cures really fast when it's done right. And then I went to this YMCA and convinced them to let me shower for free, and used it. There was Old Spice body wash in the corner. I'm like, that'll be good. Showered and then just started driving home. And it was just wild. But then got in a little bit of a routine, and things were going like really well. 2019, April 4th, we decided to move to Ohio where we could manufacture at scale. So I know I like jumped ahead here, but yeah, it just started growing. And I remember in this oak barrel, Eric Hinman, I drove one of these up to his house. He wasn't there. I dropped it off, and then he started posting about it. Brian Mazza at the time had a really large following as well. And Brian ends up posting this picture of Ice Barrel, of him getting out. And it was the traditional Ice Barrel pose, by the way. A lot of people don't do it anymore, but they push themselves up and then flex their abs.
Yeah.
And so it was
Makes you look
that
shredded.
Yeah, makes you look so shredded.
Yeah.
Until I did it. I was not in good shape at the time. I'm like, what's wrong? Like, I don't look like Brian. What's
Yeah.
happening? But that photo, it was crazy. It got us like 7,000 followers.
Wow.
Dang.
And then it was like people started like noticing in a different way. And so did I. I was like, I told you guys this is
Yeah.
gonna work. And it was crazy. That's like when things at that time at a very small sale, it was like there's something viable here. So we get out to Ohio. My wife was 8 months pregnant. We're just settling in. She goes into labor. We had just gotten into our house like the week she went into labor. And it was so wild. Like we did a unexpected home birth, delivered the baby, and we were just off to the races. But I still had to like support the family. So I started doing like random consulting stuff, started selling airplanes on my own when I needed to fund our life and fund the business. Did consulting in the polo world, like on a horse. Actual polo. I'm not a polo person, but still don't know a lot about it. But just anything like I could do. Started selling tractors in Amish country and lawnmowers, like just things to keep the energy going. But we got to this place where I was ready to transition to a different material and go away from the oak barrels because I wanted to create something that was scalable. And that's also where I started getting very strategic because I knew I had something unique. And it was at that point, it was like all about strategy. How do I scale this sustainably and profitably? And I always come back. I never wanted to be first. I wanted to be right in the market. Never first in the market, always right. And that had served us really well. So second bottom of the barrel part of this whole story. I had just finished my last batch of oak barrels, and we were going to have a little pause because I had worked really hard designing the existing ice barrel, which is the only true barrel product ever to be made. Again, cylinders are different than barrels. So we made an ice barrel out of LLDPE, which is low linear density polyethylene. It's a non-toxic BPA free product. It's used in potable water, food packaging. It's the same material they use to clamp babies' umbilical cords. So medical grade type plastic. So it's like the best quality plastic out there, but I also didn't want to just like create more plastic in our world. I wanted something more sustainable. So I went with the entire ice barrel line is 100% recycled. which was incredible. But also people don't realize recycling plastic costs more than creating new virgin plastic.
Mhm.
And so there was a lot of extra steps. Once you collect the plastic, you have to clean it and then regrind it. And so recycled plastic's actually more expensive. But I knew if I could control the manufacturing process, the entire supply chain, then we could just improve the price point of the product. So that's what we did. It was very complicated. And so many people told me you can't create an actual barrel. Like that's why all the rain barrels you see, they have straight walls. Even if they're at an angle, they're straight. Or the back of them is flat, but the front is rounded. But to do an entire round barrel, so many people told me it couldn't be done and no one would work with me. And I'm like, I'll pay you to build this. Like, I'll write you the check up front. Like we have to do this. And
why do they think it was so hard? Or what?
Yeah, so we have very unique like IP around this, but essentially you're trying to remove around like the bulge of the barrel, you're trying to remove it out of a mold. And so trying to get that out is very confusing. And I'll tell you a little secret of how we do it. I don't think it can get copied. But it's all around the temperature of the plastic when it's removed. And so that's how we hack this thing. And this one guy in Ohio, he was like, I met with him. I told him, he was like, give me a few days. And then I did not trust this guy at all. And I took Abby with me, my wife, because she's an incredible judge of character. And she's like, this guy's a little different, Wyatt. And I was like, I know. But he came back to me and he's like, I can do it for you and I'll do it for half the price. So then I really don't trust him.
Yeah.
But I didn't have any other option. So this is where I sat down with my wife and I almost got to a place I was like, I'll walk away because this is gonna like it's still our money again that we're pumping into the company. And we were already like running negative. And I had sold an airplane and I was like, I'm gonna take this money and I'm gonna buy this mold. And she's like, are you sure? And then I'm like, I don't know. But it was like a 2.5, 3 week conversation. And we were like wrestling over this idea. And I told her, I'm like, if you're not 100% on board with me, like I'll walk away. And at the time she wasn't 100% on board, for that 3 weeks. And I was like emotional and frustrated because I'm like, if I can do this, I know I can do this. So we like wrestled through it and I was walking away, from the whole thing and getting ready just to like sell all the equipment I bought. And I even messaged the guy and I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm going to move forward with this idea. And, but then she came back to me and then she was like, if we're going to do this, like we're going to do it. And like, I'll go broke with you or go live in a cardboard box with you.
Dang.
And that meant the world to me. Within like, I was like, okay, sounds good. I went to the bathroom and I messaged the guy. I'm like, start the mold, like start making it. And yeah, so it was crazy. So then after I did that and the first payment to him was like $26K, I was terrified because that would have given us, as out in Ohio, the cost of living is so low, that would have given us so much runway. But again, I just like gambled, right? The whole thing. And it was wild because I started getting like cold feet over the whole thing. And I was like, I have to start selling the product. And so again, I put up on the website just a description of the product and a price and a pre-order now. And that was like a Saturday or Sunday that I had done that. And by the following Friday, we had 19 orders. So roughly we had $19,000 in cash. And I'm messaging people. I'm like, so thankful. By the way, this is not refundable.
But thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And we still hadn't made the product yet. It was still in like this manufacturing process of getting the mold made. So we get through all of that. Joe, the manufacturer of the mold, was like expediting things because I was like, dude, like I'm gonna live on the streets if like you don't pull this off for me. He ends up getting everything done. I take it then and we're starting to manufacture this. And I was so terrified because like the first couple of parts to like dial this in, because again, like we could not pull the part out of the mold. And everyone was saying like, you can't do it. But we figured out a really clever way. And then we got our first parts. It took us about 80 ice barrels. There was a boneyard of 80 ice barrels, which is a lot, like stacked high, which was cool because those all got reground again and we turned them into ice barrels again.
That's cool.
Yeah. So no waste in this whole process. We had no plastic waste, which was incredible. But then we got the first perfect one out. And then after that, it was like the easiest thing. Since that day, we have been manufacturing an ice barrel every 45 minutes. At this stage, and that's 3 shifts a day. At the time, it was 1 shift a day. Now it's 3 shifts a day. Every 45 minutes, 2 ice barrels come off the line.
Sweet.
Which is wild.
Same manufacturer?
No, different. So we have a lot of control over the entire manufacturing part. We just rent space in a facility, and then it's all done by contractors and our team, which is really cool.
Got it.
So,
what ended up happening with Joe, the guy that you didn't trust?
Yeah, well, no surprise, he's out of business, but he built a perfect mold. And then I was able to, because we owned all the mold, all the IP, everything. So I was then able to take that to other manufacturers and make more molds. But yeah, it was wild. That was end of 2008. No, I'm sorry. That was like mid 2019 that this was all taking place. And then we just started cranking, and the sales just kept coming in. And then I was finally able to get photography of what an ice barrel is on the website, which people appreciated because they were just buying it based on a description. And we just kept going. Then 2020 was a fantastic year. And then 2021, we had 10x the business from 2020, and 2020 was a great year. So we did a huge 10x, and then it was like, all right, it's time to like pour like fire on this now. And, or no, I'm sorry, pour gasoline on the fire. So that's what we did. And then since then it went from, like there was 2 of us, then 4 of us, then 6. And now the team, there's 28 of us plus a whole bunch of contractors. And so it just grew exponentially. And, yeah, it was just crazy how it took off.
Dude, it's such a great founder story and so many pieces that I want to lean into and press into a little bit. The first one is just the sales experience, like selling private jets and all the other entrepreneurial things that you were doing at a pretty early age. How have you seen that actually the success with Ice Barrel?
Yeah, number one thing is resiliency. It was kind of funny. Believe it or not, like growing up, I was, I don't know, I don't like the word bullied, but I was like teased a lot and looked down upon because I wasn't dating girls. I was listening to like positive self-talk.
Yeah.
My dad told me when I was really young that if you want to be a leader in this world, you have to be a reader. So I would read business books at like 13. I was reading books on how to self-educate. I didn't go to college, but I was reading like textbooks on how to get an MBA and like everything you learn. So I was like hyper educated, or hyper educating myself. I would not say I was hyper educated. And it was interesting because like wasn't going out with friends, a little bit nerdy and like, but also I knew the value, even though I was very introverted, I knew the value of like being charismatic and like just putting yourself out there in uncomfortable positions. So that's what I did. I would literally take like business people to lunch. Like I found out at a young age that like if you offer to buy lunch, people will sit down with you because they're going to eat anyways, you know? So I would do that all the time. I would ride my bike to like UMB Bank. And then I met with the president of UMB Bank many times and I would always buy lunch. And then he introduced me to people and then it just kept going. So I was just always doing like the weird things at like a young age that my friends weren't doing. So like fast forward, I developed like incredible resiliency and like thick skin. And it more from this, like I knew where I was going. I was very strategic along the way. And it went from this like confidence to certainty. So it was like, I just didn't care what anybody thought, like at all. When I was taking the barrels around in like 2018, trying to take them to gyms, people were like, nobody does cold therapy. They didn't even know the term. They were like, only NFL players do ice baths. And we lived around a lot of like the Denver Bronco players. And so people knew what ice baths were, but it was only for them.
I think Von Miller was hopping in rivers and stuff like that back in like 2018.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I actually pitched Ice Barrel to Von Miller's mom.
Really?
I was doing some consulting for this weird regenerative medicine company, and I met her in the facility, and I was not supposed to be talking about Ice Barrel, but I'm like, have you heard of cold therapy?
That's unreal.
Yeah. It was funny. Anyways, yeah, so just so much resiliency. Like there's always a yes somewhere in all of the no's. Always. So all you have to do, I think of it as like golf. you're going to get a good shot if you keep hitting balls. The
Yeah.
only way you're not going to like get a hole in one is if you quit hitting balls.
Totally.
So that was like my mindset. I just have to keep swinging all day long. So yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing.
Dude, there, as Harry said, there's so many good moments to dig into. I think about you quitting your job, and not just quitting your job. Number one, walking away from probably a lot of commission for you at the time. Secondly, you never even sold an ice barrel before. This wasn't even a built out proof of concept where you're doing this part time. You were just tinkering on your own. You're like, I think I could turn this into something, but you never even made a single sale before. And also just that story of you literally maxing out your credit card to drive 6 hours to that woman's house to fix her ice barrel is insane. Our very small version of that was last night. All those Noble bags that we had today.
Yeah.
So we sold out a product because we didn't know how big the first PO should be. We were like, oh, maybe like 1,500 bags. That would be reasonable. We sold through that super fast. And by the time we realized we needed more, we were about to be sold out. So we've been waiting 8 weeks for new product. We got our manufacturer to rush us out 100 bags for HVLT. He's like, all right, they'll be there Friday. So we get the bags yesterday. There are these 2 massive boxes that literally look like someone just beat them to shit with a baseball bat. And 3 of the bags exploded. So all of those bags yesterday were like covered in this like sugary protein powder, basically. And they look terrible. And Harry and I are looking at each other like, what are we going to do? We look like such assholes. So we wash all the bags off, polish them up, like reformat them. And they look good today. But in some ways, like your version of your story is giving us confidence because like we're probably where you were, 4 or 5 years ago, where you're like, I know this thing has potential, but you're just kind of like taking your lumps and you just got to keep swinging too.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. The challenges along the way, they become badges of honor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
They're good stories at
yeah.
the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Even in the moment, you're like, this is the worst
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. It's always worth it.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it.
I was going to say with the Mazda post seemed like that was a big turning moment in business. You said you got 7,000 followers. Do you have a sense of how many plunges were potentially sold after he posted that initial one?
Which that's a great question.
I said plunges. I meant nose barrels.
Oh, dude, it's cold therapy. I'm
Yeah,
a fan of
cold
all
therapy.
cold
Yeah.
therapy. Yeah, it's interesting. I think I was not like analytics at the time. It was not on my radar at all. Now all I think about is analytics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to say though, my rough calculation was probably like 20, which is like, at that time they're $2,500. Like, yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
For sure.
So yeah, you mentioned Brian Mazza and Eric came in as 2 people that you guys got, or that you got working with pretty early on. Can you talk about like the effect of having those people bought into your brand? Cause they're incredible at building community, and like what I've observed over the past 5 years with what you're doing with Ice Barrel and like what other brands are doing is like this community component is actually like is a massive unlock. And when you can bring people around and make people excited about using your product in ways that like, you're not just going to go buy something off the shelf and like, people need to see this product multiple times in order to actually like get excited and go buy it. It's more expensive, as you talked about. You don't necessarily see the value in it. So how has it been working with 2 guys like that who can actually help you elevate the brand?
Oh, it's been amazing. Like I absolutely like love and adore Eric and Brian. Eric's been like with me almost from the beginning and it's so meaningful to me. Even through like all the ups and downs, he's always just been there, and willing to support. And in the beginning, like I couldn't pay him a dime and he was just doing so much just because he believed in cold therapy and believed in what we were doing. Fun fact, I actually met Eric in person for the first time in 2021. Even though we lived in the same, like he was North Denver, I was South Denver. Our schedules never aligned.
Really?
Yeah, it was wild. So I was at his house numerous times dropping off barrels and he was never there. And then when he was in town, I was never there.
Yeah.
So it was cool when I met him in person. But to your point, like the community is absolutely everything. Like I built the company for the people. Even for our employees, I put together an incredibly advantageous employee stock option pool. Because I never wanted it to be mine. I never wanted to be the face of the company. I didn't want it to be my thing. I wanted it to be everybody else's. And even though like my title is CEO, I'm only in the business to help uphold the core values and the vision. And I just like to keep the train on the track. And other than that, we've built an incredible team And I owe it all to them from our vendors and partners and manufacturer partners and designers and all the employees and contractors. Like it's all of them. But even more than that, it's like the people that have experienced cold therapy and the benefits of it. Um, like that's why we lean so heavy into the community because like what it does for them is just incredible. So we're very very meaningful and intentional with every space that we show up in. And one of the core values that we wanted to have, we only have four, but we really wrestled with this idea because I was like, like that person that's everybody's best friend because like he's the guy that always buys dinner for you.
Mhm.
He's the guy that like gives you the shirt off his back, the most generous friend.
Yes.
So that was like I wanted to be a core value, like the most generous friend. Um, because again, I was saying earlier, like I'm always telling the team, like, hey, we got to slow down. We can't give out so much free product. But then I'm like the worst one. I'm
Yeah.
like, I just want people to experience the cold. I'm like, man, if we take a loss or whatever, like, I don't care. Like that life changed is so much more important. But then people also want to try it. And so when we show up at events, we show up big and we give out a lot of ice baths and we do everything we can to get people to come check it out, try it out. So that means like bringing on incredible coaching talent uh and spending extra money to get like the right people at the right time to talk about the product. So yeah, just being generous with the community is so important to me.
It's one of the similarities that I think you and Eric have, where it's like your willingness to send product to people because you believe in them or want their lives to be changed. He's a great example of someone, he works with dozens and dozens of brands. I probably talked to 10 brands that work with him where his name has come up, and every single brand has been like, us choosing to work with him is one of the best decisions that we've ever made. And it makes me think about you too, where how many affiliates and influencers will immediately reach out and be like, yo, can I get a free ice barrel? And you don't know them. They've never done anything for you. And that's something that we try to model ourselves after is like, dude, like be willing to have skin in the game, buy product from someone that you care about or believe in and provide insane value, and they'll take care of you too. It's a very reciprocal thing.
Oh, 100%. 100%. When we work with, I obviously from like the aviation days, I love negotiating. Yeah. Like I get the biggest dopamine hit from like
Yeah.
negotiating and I love negotiating with brand ambassadors and partners. And one of my commitments is always like we will go so deep in a relationship with you. I never want somebody just to be like one post and done.
Yeah.
Right. I want to work with you for the entirety of the company. And I think it's so important for brands. I think this is a big miss in the D2C space. It's like they tell their ambassadors like, "Hey, I'm going to pay you X and you have to do X." But like they don't know the brand like you do. You can't just like give them some content guidelines and expect them to like crush it. You have to like coach them through it all. You have to create the buy-in. You owe them more than they owe you. If you want a successful relationship with any influencer, it's the work that you put in as a brand that makes that successful, not their following, not their engagement, not what they do. You almost have to like give them the right tools continually and help them grow in your brand. So we have incredible long-term partnerships with a lot of our ambassadors. And Eric is obviously like a unicorn influencer. He's always worth the money, by the way, if anyone's listening that wants to work with Eric.
Yeah.
So yeah, like the influencer side, I think is one of our biggest successes, just working with them and also providing value to their community. That's the other thing we had to taper in. I love doing like just giveaways just for the sake of like, let's get people product, but the team was like, why you can't do so many social media giveaways? Like you got to reel that in. But
How do you think about building out your team with such a strong founder story? Like when I heard you tell the story, it's just like this, like you're all in, fully passionate about it. And so you mentioned a few times just like different character traits, different core values that you're trying to find. Like what's the archetype of someone who's going to work at Ice Barrel?
yeah, so one of the first, I want to tell you about Nick Gooden. Nick Gooden is one of those brilliant humans I've ever met. And this was early on in Ice Barrel. This guy gets on my calendar and he wants to talk about water treatment for cold therapy. And so we have this huge conversation about the difference between filtering water and sanitizing water. Those are two different things.
Mm.
People get them confused. By the way, you can filter dirty water all day long,
Mm.
but the goal is not just to filter dirty water. You have to clean the water. And so, this was a conversation we were having, and we have developed definitely the world's best cold water therapy water treatment called our water stabilizer. This stuff is made from silver copper ions, and it's extremely effective in treating water, and it's non-toxic, which is great. Now, with that said, please don't drink it. Just add it to your ice barrel. And so I'm talking to Nick, and I was so impressed with the way that he asked questions. And I think when people ask really good questions, it's kind of a rare trait. And he was listening really well to everything I was saying. Plus, he had this crazy Zoom setup, and I'm zooming from my car, my basement, like everywhere. But his Zoom was like super clean, so it just really stood out to me. And I thought after that, I was like, if I was gonna hire somebody at an executive level, like that's what I want. So he lived in just south of Chicago, and I was in Chicago. This was like 6 months later, and I messaged him, and I was like, "Hey, I would love to meet like while I'm in the area." And it was kind of weird that I was reaching out. He was like, "Why would he reach out to me and want
Yeah.
to meet?" And Nick did some executive coaching though, and so I kind of like I met with him, and I was like, "Hey, I would love for you to help me build out, like further build out our mission, vision, and values." In the company. And my goal all along was I was looking for a COO, and I wanted to hire him.
Yeah.
But I knew like I couldn't just offer him a job. Like he has no context. So I ended up paying his like crazy high hourly rate to help me like flesh this out and build a culture deck, build out improved brand guidelines, be very clear in our communication around our vision, our mission, our values. So I got Nick so bought into the brand, and we worked together for a while. And then we kind of came to the end of the relationship, and he was like, just thought it was done. But he was having a lot of fun, by the way. And then I offered him a job, and it totally sideswiped him. And I did not think he was going to take it. But I kept telling my wife, I was like, if it's not him, it's not anyone.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was just like, fingers crossed. And so he ended up saying yes, which just surprised me. And I hired him on as a COO. And from there, we really started building the team. Now, we had some other employees, but it's like your first couple of hires are your cultural founders. They set the tone for the rest of the company. And it's very, very important. So as we started building out the team, we started building out the team around our core values. We don't make any decisions unless it aligns with our mission, our vision, and our values. That comes to people, that comes to expansion, that comes to product innovation. We're always asking the question, like, does this align in these categories? And our 4 core values are, number 1, to be wildly courageous. Number 2 is to lead with the heart. Number 3 is to live mindfully. And the last one, which is one of my favorites, is to be playfully curious. And we believe that the highest form of innovation and creativity is infused with the spirit of play. Yeah. When you can stay in a playful state with a problem, it becomes so much more enjoyable and so much more simple to solve. So we hire the whole team around the core values, and we look for people that align with those core values. So every time we're interviewing people, we're interviewing them. You always check the competency box, right? That's the simple one. But all of our interview questions are based around our core values. All of our quarterly assessments are based on our core values. And so we've been able to build what I believe is the world's best team. And I don't just say that because like we built it. I've never seen people come from like the corporate world who are terrified to fail come into our organization, and you can literally swap the word failure out with learning. And it's almost like they come in and they're like detoxing from corporate America, but to see people transform and to align to these values and then thrive in an environment, I've never seen anything like it. I've never read anything like it. We've only had to part ways, with 5 people in 5 years. Like we built an incredibly solid team. And a lot of those people moved on for different reasons. But I mean, it's just been like incredible to see the team come together the way they have. I've been wildly impressed.
I was going to ask you if
the hiring process was something that was an acquired skill, but you basically just answered my questions. We'll have to let go of 5 people. One of the things I want to ask you, since bringing Nick on, what would you say are the core differences between like a founder CEO type and then a COO and like a core operator of the business?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. So, my favorite part of the business world is like operational efficiencies, the finances, like the strategy of like not necessarily like the long-term vision of the company, but like strategy within the business. Like how do we get to from A to Z? Like that's my strong suit. Nick does a phenomenal job on like the vision and storytelling and brand and marketing, things like that. So we complement each other really, really well. But we joke. Sometimes he's like in the CEO role and I'm in like the COO role
Yeah.
because like just from an operational efficiency, I go crazy over that. Like
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. And so we've broken up like the roles in a really, really good way. And we're looking for a CMO right now. So if you know anyone
Just
or
throwing it out there. Yeah.
yeah, if anyone wants to look at a CMO position, let me know. Um, yeah, but I think it's been a really good complement to each other, the way
Mm.
we operate.
Can we talk a little bit about the actual like ice barrel, getting in the ice process? Because you mentioned the first cold shower and it hit home with me because during COVID, I had done some contrast therapy in high school for like football injuries and stuff like that, but it was only when I was injured. And then during COVID, I started just getting super regimented with diet, lifestyle, everything, getting more sleep. And one of the catalysts for all of it was literally just taking a cold shower. That was kind of like my step number 1, was just get in the cold shower and just start the day, even if it was like 30 seconds. So for people out there who are afraid to take that step and really like get into the cold, like what do you tell them? How do you talk to them about just like the basic educations of why they should do something like this?
Yeah, I mean, without diving too deep in the science, like the short-term benefits of cold therapy, you'll see an immediate boost in your mood and energy levels, reduction in pain and inflammation in the body, which feels great. We all have inflammation to some degree. So reducing that in like 2 to 3 minutes is awesome. Long-term benefits of cold therapy help stave off symptoms of depression, anxiety. They can even stave off cognitive decline over time. So there's like a lot of great benefits, right? But at the end of the day, a lot of people don't care about the benefits because it's like freezing cold water. It's like scary, uncomfortable. So the best way to start is to just start in the shower. Go cold and go hot, go cold and go hot, and just build up a habit and a habituation to the cold. And then start at 65 degrees, then go 55 degrees. You don't even have to add ice, right? A lot of like just right out of the tap water is sufficient. So like ease into it, start slow. But then also be intentional with why you're taking an ice bath. Setting an intention before your ice bath is always better than just going in without any intention, right? And so I talk about this idea like we're all suffering in some way, emotionally, physically, mentally, whatever it may be. There's also degrees to suffering. It might not be really bad. It might be really, really bad. But like choose your hard, choose your pain. You know, the pain of an ice bath that is going to pay dividends in the future versus sitting in the pain, whatever's going on in the now that is just going to linger and potentially continue. And then the other thing is consistency. And that's with anything in life.
Yeah.
The more you're consistent with it, the better the body adapts and responds. Our nervous systems, especially here in the West, are a little bit out of whack, I would say. We need to like recondition our bodies to what real fight or flight should be. Like we're all going in like the rest and repair, fight or flight, which is called the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. And so we're going in and out of that all day. But the more you can teach your body that this is what stress is versus this, like we're at a place like if somebody cuts you off in like traffic, that shouldn't evoke a fight or flight response.
Yes.
You
Right.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
If somebody is disagreeing with you, that's okay. That shouldn't evoke a fight or flight response. So the cold is a way that you can like reset your nervous system. It's a whole like workout for the nervous system. You can teach your body, this is what stress is, and I can be okay in it. I can adapt to it versus whatever life experience you're going through.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Makes you very calm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does make you very calm. And for anyone that's curious, it's one of those things that you really just have to try it if you're curious. And different people are going to have different responses to it. For me, it was September 20. I did 75 hard, Andy Priscilla. I did that challenge on my own. I never really cold plunged before. I just did those 3-minute showers every single day, and that changed my life. And the biggest thing for me personally with cold, with ice baths is that there have been multiple moments where I've just felt anxiety or shit's just blowing up all around me. And then I'll do the sauna, and then I'll get in the ice barrel. And I just feel like this peace. It's more this feeling of I know everything is going to work out. I had like 5 moments like that. And I feel like leaning into those moments is what keeps you coming back. But again, everyone's going to respond to it.
100%. I have seen so many different responses that people have had. I've coached thousands of people through ice baths. But the one thing that is consistent is I've never seen anyone get out of an ice bath with a frown on their face.
Yeah.
They're laughing, smiling, or just a little smirk. But they always get out with some kind of a positive emotion on the other side.
Do I tell them the Russian bondage story?
I don't know.
You don't know the story.
I don't-
So you might not even know the story.
I don't even think I know.
So
ready.
have you ever been to a Russian bondage before?
I have not.
Okay, so I lived in New York for 4 years, and they've got these 2 big Russian bathhouses that are there. And the best one is the one on Wall Street, Spa 88. So next time you're in New York, you would love it. It's underground. There's no self-service. It's all Russians from Brooklyn and then like a couple based Americans that are there. And so my buddy that I worked with, who's Ukrainian, he got a bunch of us going there. So I've been going to that spot for like 5 years. It's awesome. They have like the Russian sauna that gets up to 240, steam room, schwitz, and then their cold plunge is really like it almost looks like a hot tub, and you just jump right into it, and it's like 35 degrees. It's amazing because you just jump in, you don't even think about it. So I did a bachelor party in New York last year, and the guy, the buddy was a doctor, not a huge drinker, not a huge partier. It was a lot of fun, but everything changed. Somehow sauna came up, and I was like, guys, Spa 88 is like a couple subway stops away. We could go. And I started to see their eyes light up, and they were like, all right, let's do it. Let's do it. And a bunch of those guys had never cold plunged before. And so we get there, a bunch of them saunaed, and they jumped in and had their first ice bath. And literally the entire weekend flipped. Like it was the highlight of the entire moment. From like all the dinners, all the going out, it was literally like 2 hours, couple minutes of cold plunging. It was like the best part of the whole trip.
Oh, 100%. There are some amazing spots in the US to experience that with a group of people. That's so cool.
Yeah.
The social culture around contrast therapy is starting to, like, you're obviously seeing it firsthand, really starting to pick up. But it is a thing in Europe and Russia, apparently.
Oh, yeah.
Too, where it's like you go there to socialize.
Yeah. As you guys know, a lot of like the really great things for us as humans have actually been around for a long time. I did not invent cold therapy. It has been around for thousands of years. It's just we lose touch with the things that make us feel alive and human here in the West as we like try and stave off discomfort. But yeah, cold therapy is very, very popular in Europe and Asia.
Yeah. As someone who's very proud of the fact that it's a US made product, you're trying to make the most affordable, best product to people that want to access cold exposure. Could you maybe just touch on the things that you've learned through the research process? Because what I've heard is that a lot of these ice baths and newer technologies that are coming out, or most of them are made overseas. There's ridiculous premiums on this stuff. Like you see a price point for $10K, but in reality, the manufacturer is probably paying far, far, far less than that. I'd love to just learn your perspective on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very proud that we manufacture our products in the US and we employ a US workforce. I'm so proud of that. Like the fact that by the time it's crazy, there's 75 people in the chain of getting an ice barrel from like sourcing the plastic all the way to getting it to your door where you're cutting the box open. 75 people touch that. And I'm so proud that we're able like to support that whole operation and like keep it in the community in the US, right? And like take care of all of these people. Like that's incredible. And that was also non-negotiable. Our mission at Ice Barrel is to create the most effective and accessible cold therapy solutions. Everything we do touches those 2 words, effective and accessible. Cold therapy is for everyone, and I believe everyone should have access to it. When you start just sourcing products from overseas and white labeling things, no bad. Again, I'm a fan of all cold therapy, but you lose touch with the mass majority of people. You lose touch on it's no longer accessible. and a lot of times it's no longer accessible because you're utilizing and repurposing products from other industries to try and like piecemeal something together. Um, I am really big and strong on the fact that like we do all the innovation in house, all of our design gets done internally, and then we take it from like concept to right to the market. I think it's unique and I think it's meaningful, especially because we can control that price point in a much better way because I don't have to pay exuberant prices on shipping containers. You know, we can just do it all here.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we've been going down the Origins rabbit hole, which is Jocko's company, and Brett and I have just been listening to his podcast, just talking about the importance of really like the idea of being able to provide for people in the US or even in your local community through just like being able to create jobs locally. It's kind of starting to become like less of I mean, it is becoming less of a thing with remote work becoming more popular, people being able to go down to like Latin America and work down there, or like, you know, wanting to be elsewhere. You can outsource VA responsibilities or other responsibilities overseas. Like it's just becoming less and less of a thing to have
yeah.
that like, let's be under one roof or let's support people kind of in our community. So it's cool hearing you talk about just like those 75 people that are actually a part of the value chain that you're able to like truly support.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so important. I mean, as you can start taking care of your local community on whatever scale that you can, when people feel taken care of, they start taking care of other things.
Yeah.
And there's so interesting to see a lot of the studies out there around like when you take lower income areas, and part of our supply chain does start in lower income areas, and we're able to provide um very, very competitive wages in there to see like the attitudes lift, the energy lift, and then they start caring for each other in different ways. Like that's so meaningful. If we could all do that, like you would essentially eradicate like poverty here in the US. If we could just like utilize and start like paying competitive wages in these lower income areas. It's very meaningful. And the results are great.
Yeah.
Such a good point. We've been thinking about this concept of like, how do you get people to prize like the local artisan or the US made business again? It's a tough answer, but I think it's probably falls with what you're saying, where you just identify these core principles that you had as a company. And you're like, if it doesn't align, we don't do it regardless of how it impacts the bottom line.
100%. I think, and it was funny when we were building out the core values, the word that I always came back to was care. Like you have to care. You have to care. And one of my mentors was like, he was like, Wyatt, that might be your core value. That might not be a business core value. You have to understand when you're building out a business that like your personal core values shouldn't always be the business core values. But there is this vein and thread of caring because it's one of my core values. Kind of like bleeds into everything. Though we don't always lead with the like with the core value of caring. It's interwoven in everything that we do. But like unpopular opinion, employees before customers.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's like customer first, customer first. I do not agree with that. I believe that it's employees first. And if you do that and you show that and you don't just say it, but you always put your employees first, they will always put your customer first. If you're having customer problems, it's because you're having employee problems. If you can solve that piece with your employees and lead with that, you solve so many problems. We don't have customer problems. We might have frustrated customers from time to time, disgruntled customers from time to time. Those are my favorite, by the way. I still have our customer service department send me anybody that's not happy. And first thing is, hey, here's my cell phone number. Let's talk. Like, how can we solve this together? And it's generally, by the way, over shipping timeframes. I would like to say we're not Amazon. It does take us a little bit longer than Amazon to fulfill orders. But with that said, we have done a phenomenal job at equipping our employees to take care of the customers.
I think we would be remiss not to talk about you being a rancher or a homesteader yourself on this podcast. I think we need to, we need to dive into, we need to transition over to that because it's the Me Mafia podcast. Talk about how you got into that. Like, So you've got chickens, cattle. What else do you have in the homestead?
Yeah. So it started with I'm I'm very aware and cognizant of how I consume and how my family consumes
Mhm.
everything, the way we eat, the way we dress, the way we throw things away, like how we consume matters. And I wanted just to live I don't like buzzwords, but like I wanted to live a more sustainable life. And especially with the impact that we've made through recycling plastic, like that means a lot to me. And I wanted more ways to do that. So when we got out to Ohio, um, it started with chickens, and it started with a underground animal auction. I had some chickens, and the hawks were getting the chickens, so I wanted to get peacocks in order to protect the chickens.
Mm.
So I
From
got
hawks?
yeah, from the
I didn't know
hawks,
that.
Really?
which is incredible.
That's
The
sweet.
peacocks will jump up in the air as the hawk swoops down and hit the hawk to the
Are you
ground.
serious?
Yes, but the peacocks have gotten extremely lazy, and now they do not protect the chickens from hawks. They don't even sleep in the coop anymore. They sleep on our roof at our
That's
house,
wild.
but they're really majestic animals. They're like elephants is like their behavior and
Hmm.
demeanor. It's really interesting. So it started there with the chickens. Um, and then I started working with a local farmer who was raising Black Angus beef. And through all of this, from different times, I had like bad digestion challenges. And at one point, I went to Mexico. This was like pre ice barrel. Went to Mexico and got very sick. I drank the water, even though they said not to. And I was like sick for like 3 months, even like when I got back to the States. And ever since then, that it had like messed me up for a while. So I was trying different things to just like stabilize my gut health and digestion. And for whatever reason, the more red meat I ate, like the better I was.
Mm.
So I started eating a lot of red meat. Um, and it started getting really expensive. So then I just started working at the time with a local farmer, and he would raise beef to my specifications. I wanted like 100% grass fed, which doesn't always taste the best.
No,
At the end of the day, like,
big discrepancy. in
yeah,
taste. It's either the best or the toughest beef you've ever
yeah,
had.
yeah. I ended up with a lot of really tough beef, but I felt incredible. Um, So then I just started doing that myself. I learned how to do it. I would get my calves. I would always get my calves from, I wanted them out of a field, not an auction, just because they're healthier. They're not exposed to like diseases and bacteria. Um, so yeah, we just raised these beautiful Black Angus beef.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Mid seltzer break.
Pause.
Little pause. So yeah, we have these beef, and they're grass fed. I do give them a little bit of non-GMO corn from time to time just to build trust, so they let me pet them. But yeah, it's great. So we're out in Ohio. We have this little farm. I have had different animals from time to time, like miniature horses and sheep and things like that. But beef is where it's at.
That's awesome. How many cattle do you have now?
So small, 3 to 6 at a given time.
Yeah, because you're just feeding your family with it.
Yeah, and employees. I'd
Yeah.
love to send it out.
That's so cool. So
Our
you'll send some
warehouse-
to
well,
your
yeah.
employees.
Yeah, come to our warehouse. There's like chest freezers, and then the guys just grill for lunch.
That's unreal.
So yeah,
Yeah. It's funny how that works too when you have gut issues and you start eating red meat and all of a sudden the gut issues go away.
yeah. I don't know the science behind it. I just know for me, I started eating red meat consistently and a lot of it, and voila.
Yeah, it goes back to what you were saying before, which is what I really appreciated. Like, I don't need a scientific study to know that cold porgy is good for me. I don't need a scientific study to know that red meat is really good for me too.
Yeah, it seemed to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not to spit in the face of science, but
No.
you articulated it perfectly earlier. I never heard it said that way. And what exactly what did you say? It was
Yeah.
like this. You don't.
Yeah, let's not let like science. Okay, well, first, we live in an age of information, and it's very hard to discern based on all the conflicting information of what's good for you, bad for you,
Yeah.
right, wrong. It's just it can be so confusing. But I feel like the more we lean into the knowledge and the information, we start becoming less in touch with our instincts. And we've been good at being humans for a long time. We're very resilient, adaptive creatures. If we can get back to a state of responding and, yeah, I would say responding to our bodies out of instinct and not letting technology replace that instinct, like we can do it. Like we have what it takes. And not to discredit, like there are some people like what Lat was saying earlier that they have some kind of neurological challenge that their body doesn't give them the instincts that they need.
Yeah.
But for the majority of humans, let's not let technology, knowledge, and science replace our instincts. Let's let it inform what we're already feeling and perceiving. I really like doing self check-ins. I think self-awareness is a really great tool. And I have this whole list of questions. If I'm feeling off, I start just checking in with myself. How's your energy level? How's your sleep? How's your digestion? How's your sex drive? Like those are things that are important. And if you can like start checking in with yourself, your instincts will provide like, hey, this is where I'm lacking. This is what I need. And then you can start aligning your emotions and your body with, a mind-body connection. It works really well.
Yeah. For the listener that didn't know, you and Lat from Ketone IQ were on a panel together.
Yes.
How many PhDs does I have? Like 3?
A lot.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. But I was like interested because I was thinking to myself, these guys are probably going to give different answers, but it was actually somewhat similar where he agreed with you. His point was like, if you are metabolically unhealthy, you don't have that intuition that you're talking about.
Right.
So like a Garmin, when you're 30 pounds overweight or whatever, it's a great tool because now you know, hey, this is my resting heart rate when I eat these foods. These are the calories I'm burning. These are the steps I'm getting. But eventually the point is like, you should wake up and know, hey, I feel good. My sex drive is low. I feel depressed. I feel really good. Like you should be able to develop that internal sense too.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. It was great. Well, look, man, I know you've got some salt and thyme steaks to eat.
Yeah.
I would go ribeye with blue cheese butter. That's what we typically like.
Wait,
to
is this
get.
your first time going to Salt and Thyme?
It is. Yeah.
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 Dude.
The tallow fries are insane too.
Oh, okay. That's easy.
They also have bone marrow butter, but
You're
gonna
My
be-
mouth is watering.
you're gonna
I'm
be
ready to go.
you're gonna be
Dude,
juiced
starving.
tonight for
Yeah.
sure. But dude, we've been wanting to sit down with you for a long time, and I'm not just saying this. We're huge admirers of what you built. We feel really lucky that we get to call you a friend. We have a relationship now, and just appreciate you for fighting the good fight, and just congrats on all the success.
Thank you. I really appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me. This was a blast.
Love it. Thanks, Wyatt.